currently Earth. It was March 14th in the year 1879 that Albert Einstein was born, the son of a Jewish electrical engineer in Ulm, Germany. Einstein's theories of special and general relativity drastically altered human understanding of the universe, and his work in particle and energy theory helped to make possible quantum mechanics and ultimately the atomic bomb. After a childhood in Germany and Italy, Einstein studied physics and mathematics at the Federal Polytechnic Academy in Zurich, Switzerland. He became a Swiss citizen and in 1905 was awarded a PhD from the University of Zurich while working at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. That year, which historians of Einstein's career call the Annus Mirabilis, the miracle year, he published 5 theoretical papers that were to have a profound effect on the development of modern physics. In the first of these, titled On a Heuristic Viewpoint Concerning the Production and Transformation of Light, Einstein theorized that light is made up of individual quanta, photons that demonstrate particle-like properties while collectively behaving like a wave. The hypothesis, an important step in the development of quantum theory, was arrived at through Einstein's examination of the photoelectric effect, a phenomenon in which some solids emit electrically charged particles when struck by light. This work would later earn him the 1921 Nobel Prize in Physics. The second paper he devised in a new method of counting and determining the size of the atoms and molecules in a given space, and in the third, he offered a mathematical explanation for the constant erratic movement of particles suspended in a fluid known as a Brownian motion. These 2 papers provided indisputable evidence of the existence of atoms, which at the time was still disputed by a few scientists. Einstein's fourth groundbreaking scientific work of 1905 addressed what he termed his special theory of relativity. In special relativity, time and space are not absolute, but relative to motion of the observer. Thus, 2 observers traveling at great speeds in regard to each other would not necessarily observe simultaneous events in time at the same moment, nor necessarily agree in their measurement of space. In Einstein's theory, the speed of light, which is the limiting speed of any body having mass, is constant in all frames of reference. In the 5th paper that year, an exploration of the mathematics of special relativity, Einstein announced that mass and energy were equivalent and could be calculated with an equation, E equals mc squared. Although the public was not quick to embrace his revolutionary science, Einstein was welcomed into the circle of Europe's most eminent physicists and given professorships in Zurich, Prague, and Berlin. In 1916, he published The Foundation of the General Theory of Relativity, which proposed that gravity as well as motion can affect the intervals of time and of space. According to Einstein, gravitation is not a force, as Isaac Newton had argued, but a curved field in the space-time continuum, created by the presence of mass. An object of very large gravitational mass, such as the sun, would therefore appear to warp space and time around it, which could be demonstrated by observing starlight as it skirted the sun on its way to the Earth. In 1919, astronomers studying a solar eclipse verified predictions Einstein made in the general theory of relativity, and he became an overnight celebrity. Later, other predictions of general relativity, such as shift in the orbit of the planet Mercury and the probable existence of black holes, were confirmed by scientists. During the next decade, Einstein made continued contributions to quantum theory and began work on a unified field theory, which he hoped would encompass quantum mechanics and his own relativity theory as a grand explanation of the workings of the universe. As a world-renowned public figure, he became increasingly political, taking up the cause of Zionism and speaking out against militarism and rearmament. In his native Germany, this made him an unpopular figure, and after Nazi leader Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany in 1933, Einstein renounced his German citizenship and left the country. He later settled in the U.S., where he accepted a post at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. He would remain there for the rest of his life, working on his unified field theory and relaxing by sailing on a local lake or playing his violin. He became an American citizen in 1940. In 1939, despite his lifelong pacifist beliefs, he agreed to write to the president, Franklin D. Roosevelt, our nation's 32nd president, on behalf of a group of scientists who were concerned with American inaction in the field of atomic weapons research. Like the other scientists, he feared sole German possession of such a weapon. He played no role, however, in the subsequent Manhattan Project and later deplored the use of atomic bombs against Japan. After the war, he called for the establishment of a world government that would control nuclear technology and prevent future armed conflict. In 1950, he published his unified field theory, which was quietly criticized as a failure. A unified explanation of gravitation, subatomic phenomena, and electromagnetism remains elusive today. Albert Einstein, one of the most creative minds in human history, continued his eternity in Princeton in the year 1955. It was March 24th in the year 1914 when John Jack Mack, who co-founded Mack Trucks, Inc., then known as the Mack Brothers Company, with his brothers August and William, continued his eternity when his car collides with a trolley in Pennsylvania. After the Mack brothers sold their company to investors in 1911, it continued to flourish, becoming one of North America's largest makers of heavy-duty trucks. During World War I, Mack built thousands of trucks for the American and British governments. The company acquired its trademark Bulldog logo when British soldiers said the truck's blunt-nosed hood and durability reminded them of their country's mascot, the Bulldog. In 1922, the company was renamed Mack Trucks, Inc. In 2001, Mack was acquired by Volvo of Sweden. Today, the expression "it hit me like a Mack truck," meaning something that creates a powerful impact, is part of our American lexicon. It was March 14th in the year 1991 that the Birmingham Six were released from prison. In the face of widespread questioning of their guilt, British authorities released the so-called Birmingham Six. Six Irishmen who had been sent to prison 16 years earlier for the 1974 terrorist bombings of two Birmingham English pubs. On November 21st in 1974, two Irish Republican Army bombs exploded in two separate Birmingham pubs, continuing the eternity of 21 people and injuring hundreds. The bombing attacks were part of the ongoing conflict between the British government and the IRA over the status of Northern Ireland. Days after the Birmingham bombings, the British government outlawed the IRA in all the United Kingdom, and authorities rushed to arrest and convict the IRA members responsible. 6 Irish suspects were arrested and sent to interrogation, where 4 of them signed confessions. The IRA, which claimed responsibility for the Birmingham bombings, declared that the 6 were not members of its organization. During the subsequent trial, the defendants maintained their innocence, claiming that police had beaten the confessions out of them. Prosecutors denied this and also came up with forensic evidence that apparently proved that the Birmingham Six had handled explosives shortly before their arrest. They were convicted and sentenced to lengthy prison terms. In 1985, the forensic evidence was exposed by scientists as unreliable at best, and in 1987, the appeals judge conceded that the same results could be obtained from testing people who recently touched playing cards or cigarette paper. However, it was not until March of 1991, with people across Britain and Ireland calling for their release, that the Birmingham Six were freed after years in prison. 7 years later, a British Court of Appeals formally overturned their sentences, citing serious doubts about the legitimacy of the police evidence and the treatment of the suspects during their interrogation. The information documented on this audio file can be verified on history.com.